The border crisis reaching the geopolitical stage. The U.S. Special Envoy to Haiti has resigned, citing the inhumane and counterproductive decision to deport Haitians from the border. This comes as the Biden administration looks to Guantanamo Bay to help house asylum seekers. The FDA has greenlit Pfizer's booster shot for Americans 65 and older and some considered high risk. Next up is the CDC voting today. And as for the global vaccination efforts, President Biden announced the U.S. will donate another 500 million doses to foreign nations. And for those not complying with the vaccine mandates, Penn State University suspending over 100 students for not following the weekly testing requirement. A hospital system in North Carolina suspends hundreds of employees for failing to get the shot. And members of the military could face discharges. Tune into Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. The border crisis reaching the geopolitical stage. The U.S. Special Envoy to Haiti has resigned. Daniel Foote cited the, quote, inhumane and counterproductive decision to deport thousands of Haitian refugees from the U.S. border. In his resignation letter to Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Foote wrote that the U.S. approach to Haiti is deeply flawed. He says Haiti is unable to provide basic services and security to its citizens, and that will have consequences in the U.S. and its neighbors. The Department of Homeland Security says 1,400 Haitians have been returned to Haiti since September 19th. Right now, about 5,000 migrants, mostly Haitians, are living in a temporary shelter in Del Rio, Texas. As thousands of migrants wait in the makeshift camp under the Del Rio International Bridge to get processed by U.S. immigration authorities, a miles-long steel barrier of Texas State Trooper vehicles has gone up to deter the thousands headed to the border.
If you are targeting Texas to come to, we're going to show up in force and shut down the border.
The camp under the bridge beginning to dwindle in size. The fate of the migrants still there, uncertain. Some are returned to their home countries. One by one, migrants under the bridge, many of whom officials say are Haitian, are loaded onto buses and transported to U.S. immigration processing facilities. Some are expelled to Haiti and other countries under a pandemic health rule. And nearly 1,000 have been dropped off by Border Patrol at the nonprofit Refugee, pending their immigration cases. In the past 3 days, that's according to the group's director. In August, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, more than 70,000 migrant families were allowed into the U.S., while around 16,000 were expelled. This comes as the surge of Haitian migrants at the U.S. border is causing the Biden administration to look for some help with housing. The administration needs a contractor to staff the Guantanamo Bay migrant facility in Cuba. The request calls for at least 50 unarmed custody officers who can deploy within 24 hours. 10% of these workers must be fluent in Spanish and Haitian Creole. According to the listing, the Migrant Operations Center has a capacity of 120 people, but says it would have an estimated daily population of only 20. But it also says that number could exceed 120 migrants and possibly reach 400 in a surge event. The contractor they are looking for must also have equipment to build temporary housing on short notice. Recently, the naval base at Guantanamo Bay held preliminary hearings for those accused of plotting the 9/11 attacks. Meanwhile, on the federal level, the White House says the president supports figuring out a new immigration system.
The president remains committed to putting in place a humane and orderly immigration system that includes an established and efficient process for applying for asylum, that includes a range of programs for individuals to apply to stay in the United States.
The White House is facing criticism from both sides of the aisle. Republican Jeff Van Drew saying the Biden administration seems to deny the reality of the border crisis.
It's like I'm in Bizarro world. I see it in front of me, you see it in front of you, but some people pretend not to see it.
Democrats, on the other hand, voicing concerns about the recent treatment of illegal Haitian immigrants after images went viral of Border Patrol agents on horseback.
I'm unhappy, and I'm not just unhappy with the cowboys who were running down Haitians and using their reins to whip them. I'm happy with the administration.
Authorities trying to deal with thousands of mostly Haitian immigrants who have gathered in Del Rio, Texas. Some are being released while others are being deported on flights.
Right now, it's not clear how they are being processed, what criteria Border Patrol is using to say who should have access to parole who's going on the deportation flights.
He says immigrants are given different colored tickets based on whether they're a single man or woman, pregnant, or a family with minor children. Texas Governor Greg Abbott visited Del Rio on Tuesday. He said the county's top officials at the camp's most recent tally was over 8,600 people. U.S. authorities have declined to say how many have been released into the U.S. in recent days. And now, some people could be getting a COVID-19 booster pretty soon. Pfizer's just got the FDA's emergency use authorization. And today, the CDC panel will decide whether to recommend it. Then the CDC director signs off. The booster is targeted at people 65 years and up, those at high risk of severe disease, and people at risk because of their jobs, like healthcare workers, teachers, and grocery workers. The CDC is expected to fine-tune recommendations on how boosters should be given and talk about where we go from here.
I suspect what's going to happen is we'll continue to collect data on this cohort, 65 and over, and other people who are made eligible. And eventually the agency may walk down the authorization to younger age cohorts.
But there are still millions who haven't gotten their first shot. President Biden wants to ramp up vaccinations around the world. He announced at a virtual COVID-19 summit today that the U.S. will donate another 500 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccines to foreign nations in 2022.
Today, I'm announcing another historic commitment. The United States is buying another 500 million doses of Pfizer to donate to low and middle-income countries around the world. This is another 500 million doses that will all be shipped by this time next year. And it brings our total commitment of donated vaccines to over 1.1 billion vaccines to be donated. Put another way, for every one shot we've administered to date in America, we have now committed to do 3 shots to the rest of the world.
This comes after Biden announced a vaccine partnership with the European Union on Wednesday to work more closely on expanding global vaccinations. Another goal is to boost vaccine manufacturing capacity in other countries. And as for short-term measures to combat the pandemic, Biden also promises to spend big.
The United States is providing nearly $1.4 billion to reduce COVID-19 deaths and mitigate transmission through bulk oxygen support, expanded testing, and strengthening healthcare systems and more.
Biden is also urging wealthy nations to donate rather than sell vaccines to poor nations, and he adds these should be no political strings attached. Now, amid the vaccination efforts, what about those who don't want the shot? Penn State University is suspending 117 students for failing to comply with a weekly testing requirement. They've been placed on interim suspension. That means they may not participate in classes in person or remotely. They're not allowed on university property, and they may not attend any Penn State-sponsored events, programs, and activities, including football games. On-campus students on interim suspension also are temporarily removed from their residence halls. The Vice President for Student Affairs, Damon Sims, said in the statement, "It's important that both students and employees comply with our testing requirement, and we have done everything we reasonably can to ensure that these students are aware of their obligation and do what they must to honor it." And a hospital system in North Carolina has suspended hundreds of employees. Novant Health suspended 375 team members across 15 hospitals, 800 clinics, and hundreds of outpatient facilities. The healthcare system said they were not compliant with their vaccine mandate and therefore not able to report to work. The system said employees will have a 5-day grace period to get vaccinated. But if they still do not comply after that grace period, then they'll be fired, and they are not paid during the suspension. That's different from the University of Alabama at Birmingham health system, which has stopped forcing healthcare workers to be vaccinated. It came as the healthcare group faced a lawsuit. They said they'll wait for federal guidance before implementing the mandate. They noted that Biden issued an executive order saying federal rules and regulations will come out in the next few weeks that will require vaccines for healthcare facilities receiving Medicare and Medicaid funds. The conservative public interest firm named Alabama Center for Law and Liberty threatened to bring the lawsuit. The firm alleged Alabama's law prohibits state entities from mandating the vaccine. And members of the military face a possible discharge if they choose not to be vaccinated. But 4 Republican senators introduced a bill on Tuesday to ensure those troops would receive an honorable discharge only. Republican Senators Roger Marshall, Tommy Tuberville, James Lankford, and Ted Cruz introduced the COVID-19 Vaccine Dishonorable Discharge Prevention Act on Tuesday. The bill would ensure that service members who are discharged for choosing not to get the COVID-19 vaccine would receive an honorable discharge only. Although it does not stop unvaccinated troops from being discharged, it does soften the blow. The bill states any discharge other than honorable denotes a dereliction of duty or a failure to serve the U.S. and its people. In addition, some discharge statuses, such as bad conduct or dishonorable discharges, would cause the service member to lose a slew of rights, benefits, and honors. The proposed legislation comes after the Pentagon implemented a vaccine mandate in August. Service members may apply for religious and medical exemptions. Several military branches have set deadlines for vaccination. If troops fail to comply, they could be punished by relief of duties or discharge. Senator Marshall, who led in introducing the bill, said in a statement, American heroes should not be treated as felons because of their personal medical choices. The bill comes amid concerns that the military's vaccine mandate could result in troops leaving the service. And now, before we end, they say a dog is man's best friend, and these firefighters outside St. Louis have quite the new pal. They saved a little guy named Rico from inside this 40-foot well. The dog went for a stroll near a neighbor's house and took a tumble. Now, he's free thanks to the Prairie Town and Edwardsville fire departments. And 2020 is closer than it seems. Sherwin-Williams announcing next year's color. 2022 is going to be about cool and refreshing colors, as the paint manufacturer has chosen Evergreen Fog as its 2022 color of the year. Sherwin-Williams says the mix of gray and green color has a sophisticated, earthy feel that can be used both indoors and outdoors. The company has chosen a color of the year for the last 12 years. They start by looking at industry trends and emerging themes to create a color mix forecast. The 2022 forecast included 40 colors and 4 palettes. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.